it ties into Steam VR, and if a game is compatible, you can choose to play it natively on the headset. Or I keep saying natively, even though it's like translating, but you can choose to play it on the headset itself as
Yeah,
opposed to streaming.
standalone. You can play it standalone.
Standalone,
Yeah.
yes, it's standalone play is possible. So I guess there's two questions for me there. One, how was your experience with it? And two, like, what are the limitations here? Like, are they going to allow you to sort of tempt anything, like with say Proton, or is there actually going to be sort of like a white list of like games that are compatible with the Steam frame?
Yeah. So before I touch on your questions, just a quick note on the tech side, because
Yeah.
Rich sent me this a little bit ago. He thought it
Okay.
was interesting. On, I think, November 6th, Code Weavers, the famous company that they supply many of the technologies necessary for Proton, they
Right.
announced they were doing some ARM translation. So that's potentially linked up with this. But in terms of the experience, I would say, it's not going to be capable of anything too crazy here. But I was able to play some native VR games. So Moss and Ghost Town.
Mm.
Moss, the game with the little mouse running around, and Ghost Town is kind of like this creepy thing where you're looking at lighthouses and things like that. But it's important to put expectations at kind of a moderate level, because it's kind of like Quest level VR experiences that you can probably run on this thing standalone. These are visually simpler games, and they're not going to run on the same level as like a dedicated PC, right? I actually suggested, I spoke to one of the developers behind the scenes at
Mm.
the demo room, and I suggested, is this like kind of roughly Steam Deck level? And they seem to say, well, it's a moving target, but maybe that's a good way to think of it, right? So this is like a good, high-end, powerful, but still mobile SoC, right? It's not necessarily going to be lighting the world on fire. In terms of limitations on it, I actually don't think there's any limitations on it at the moment. They said it should have very good compatibility, and they will have a Steam Frame verified program for running Steam Frame games standalone on the headset. All games should work via streaming, but those Steam Frame verified games are basically certified by Valve to give you a good experience in the headset. And of course, it can play
Mm.
flat screen games as well, which you discussed briefly. And they showed Hades running on the device natively. Oh, obviously, you can, of course, stream these games as well. But they showed Hades running on the device natively, or at least standalone. I guess natively is the wrong term. It seemed very smooth and crisp. And it has a similar interface to when you use Steam Link on a device like the MetaQuest 3, streaming from a
Right.
PC. It's a similar kind of interface. You can resize the size of the screen with your controller movement there. You can
That's
get that
cool.
kind of experience, and it is kind of neat. Now, I think it's important to put everything in context and maybe temper expectations a bit. Like, I don't think that this is as good of an experience as like a proper TV viewing experience, because the brightness of the panel is not that great. Obviously, some people get a little bit of discomfort after being in VR
Hmm.
for a long time. I certainly get a little bit of discomfort after 30 minutes, 45 minutes. So this is maybe the thing for extended play sessions when you're at home. But if you're on the go with this device, I could definitely imagine using it portably, using it standalone, and actually having this super immersive flat screen experience when you're on the go. That's a pretty cool functionality to have on a headset like this.
I agree, and I feel like you're selling it a little short, only in the sense that this hasn't really been done before. Like, we've seen
Right,
these 2D projected images, sure, but it's always when tethered to a device, like
right.
a computer or a game console. So being able to do this on the go, I think, is the thing that separates it. Essentially, you've got like a portable. I mean, you've got the Steam Deck, but strapped to your head on a big screen. It's kind of the promise here.
Mhm.
I think that's extremely cool and compelling because it, like, imagine, like, taking this with you on an airplane. Now you could like play games from your Steam library on a large screen in front of you,
Mhm.
like in a place like that. That's pretty sweet. I like this idea a lot. But if I can rewind back to the native Quest level experiences, you say, so you mentioned there's the Steam frame verification,
Mhm.
but do you actually know if it's possible to just sort of force games to run and see what happens?
I imagine it will be very similar to the current situation on SteamOS, where you can choose to
Okay.
boot anything, even games that are unsupported, but that might provide a little bit of an unpleasant experience. But I'd also say that, like, for me personally, at least, in the context of VR, if you're booting a game that's not supported and you get like a low frame rate and you're getting a
Hmm.
really upsetting experience, that to me, on a flat screen game system, it's okay. But in VR, it might be very quickly this uncomfortable, right? So you got to be careful with your choice of game experience potentially on this device.
Obviously, the thing rattling around in my head, and what I assumed would be possible and was not shown and seems to not be, is like running Half-Life Alyx on this thing natively. And of course, I want to try it now. People got the 2D version running on the Steam Deck, for one. It's definitely not intended to be run on there.
Yeah.
So I guess the question is, like, is that possible? And if you're an old hand at VR, like jumping into a game that doesn't run well, it's no problem. You get used to it. It's true if you're still not accustomed to it, it could make you feel pretty sick pretty fast. But when you're used to fiddling with this stuff, it's like whatever.
When you have your sea legs.
And I guess that's kind of the thing, is like the amount of freedom they offer is, I think, important here. The Quest has actually come a long way due to all the homebrew scene, the ability to enable developer mode. You can do a lot of cool stuff. Like some of the best things on Quest are the Team Beef VR ports, right? Like the Doom VR, Doom 3, Quake, whatever, Jedi Knight, all of those are incredible. So well done. So it's very important that we have freedom to kind of do what you want with the headset. And based on Valve's history, I suspect that won't be a problem. They just can't guarantee that the experience will be good. So I guess we'll see about that. So that's all cool then. So it sounds like it's not like a game-changing thing, and maybe not as powerful as I had hoped, but given the size and battery considerations, I get it. It's very neat, though, that ARM translation layer is here. That's going to allow at least a chunk of the Steam VR library to be playable, and it should expand the overall VR landscape and also unify the shops in a way. Like, Steam VR was always kind of competing as its own thing versus the others, and if this had introduced a different store or something, which wouldn't have been very Valve-like, that would have been a disaster, but that's not the case here, so I think that's cool.